Chapter 1. The wrong door. The rain came down in sheets, turning the Boston streets into rivers of neon and exhaust. I was already 20 minutes late, soaked through my jacket, and my phone had died 3 blocks ago. When the black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, I didn't think twice. The back door swung open. I dove inside. Thank God, I gasped, shoving wet hair from my face. I've been waiting forever. Traffic from the airport was. The door locks clicked. All 4 at once. That's when I realized the leather seats were the wrong color. Too dark, too expensive. And the man in the driver's seat wasn't looking at me through the rearview mirror with the bored expression of a ride-share driver. He was looking at me like I was a problem that needed solving. You're not my Uber, I said quietly. No, his voice was low, controlled. The kind of voice that didn't need to rise to make a point. I'm not. My hand moved to the door handle. Locked. I tried the other side. Also locked. Let me out. Can't do that. The driver pulled away from the curb, smooth and unhurried, like he had all the time in the world. Like I hadn't just made the worst mistake of my life. What do you mean you can't? I leaned forward, trying to keep my voice steady. This is a mistake. I got in the wrong car. Just let me out at the next light. You got in the wrong car, he agreed. His eyes met mine in the mirror again, and something about them made my throat tighten. They were dark, almost black in the dim light, and completely unreadable. But I can't let you out. Not yet. Why not? Because you've seen my face. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a primal rhythm that said run, even though there was nowhere to go. I don't know who you are, I said, and I hated how my voice shook. I wasn't even looking at you. I just needed a ride. I'm supposed to meet my sister at Luciana's on Newberry Street. He said it like a fact, not a question. 7:30 reservation. You're late. I slid down my spine. How do you know that? He didn't answer. The Mercedes glided through the rain-slicked streets, taking turns I didn't recognize. We were moving away from downtown, toward the darker edges of the city, where the streetlights grew sparse and the buildings squatted low and industrial. I pulled out my phone. Dead. Of course it was dead. There's no point, he said. Even if it worked, someone will notice I'm missing, eventually. The word was almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. I forced myself to breathe, to think. He was young, maybe early 30s. Expensive suit, tailored perfectly across broad shoulders. His jaw was sharp even in shadow, and there was a scar, thin and white, cutting through his left eyebrow. His hands on the wheel were steady, relaxed. Not the hands of someone nervous about kidnapping a woman in Broadwell, in rain-soaked twilight. This was routine for him. Are you going to kill me? I asked, because suddenly I needed to know. Needed to hear him say it. His eyes flicked to the mirror again. For a moment, something shifted in them. Something almost like surprise. No, then what do you want? I want, he said slowly, to figure out what to do with you. The Mercedes turned down a narrow alley, then through a gate that opened automatically. We pulled into an underground garage, all concrete and shadow and the echo of the engine cutting off. He didn't move to get out. Neither did I. Here's the situation, he said, turning in his seat to look at me properly for the first time. Up close, he was worse, more dangerous. The kind of beautiful that existed specifically to lure people into bad decisions. You got into this car because you thought it was yours. I know that, but the men who were watching me pull up to that curb, they don't know that. They saw you get in. They saw me drive away. And now they think you're connected to me. Connected how? In a way that makes you valuable. In a way that makes you a target. My mouth went dry. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. You need to stay alive long enough for me to clean this up. Clean what up? Who's watching you? Why would anyone care if my name is Dante Gravano, he said, and the name dropped between us like a stone into still water. Does that mean anything to you? It didn't, should it? No, something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe. Or calculation. Good, that makes this simpler. He got out of the car, and I heard his footsteps circle around to my door. When it opened, the air from outside rushed in cold, damp, smelling of oil and concrete. You can run, he said, looking down at me with those unreadable eyes. There's an exit at the end of the garage. You'll make it maybe 20 feet before Marco stops you. Or you can come with me, and I'll explain why the worst decision you made tonight might have just saved your life. I stared at him, at the rain still dripping from his dark hair. at the way he held himself, like violence was always an option, but rarely necessary. At the scar through his eyebrow that suggested someone had once gotten close enough to hurt him. Who's Marco? I whispered. Someone you don't want to meet in a dark garage. Behind him, deeper in the shadow, I saw movement. A shape that resolved into a man, broad and still, watching us with the patience of a predator. Dante Gravano extended his hand. Your choice, Mia. And that's when I realized he knew my name. Chapter 2. The gilded Kagi didn't take his hand. I got out of the car on my own, pushing past him with what little dignity I had left. Even though my legs felt like water and my wet clothes clung to me like a second skin, he didn't stop me. Just watched with that same calculating stillness as I stood there in the concrete garage, rain-soaked and shaking, with nowhere to go. How do you know my name? I demanded. Your phone. He gestured to the cell in my death grip. The lock screen. Before it died. Luce's calling with a heart emoji. He tilted his head slightly. Your sister's Luciana. You're Mia. Mia Castellano, if I had to guess from the reservation. Relief and terror warred in my chest. He'd seen my phone. That was all. He wasn't, so you're not some kind of stalker. No, a pause. Just someone whose night got significantly more complicated. The man in the shadows, Marco, I assumed shifted his weight. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt his attention like a physical thing. Inside, Dante said. Not a request. He led me toward a metal door, his hand hovering near the small of my back, but not quite touching. The gesture was strangely old-fashioned, almost protective, which made no sense given that he was the one I needed protection from. The door opened into a service elevator. Old, industrial. The kind that groaned and shuddered as it climbed. We rode up in silence, and I became acutely aware of how small the space was, how close he stood, how I could smell his cologne, something dark and woody that probably cost more than my rent. You're staring, he said without looking at me. You kidnapped me, technically. You kidnapped yourself. His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. I'm just dealing with the consequences. The elevator opened onto a penthouse that made my breath catch despite everything. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, rain streaming down the glass like tears. The space was all dark wood and leather, sharp lines and expensive art. A crystal decanter sat on a sideboard, amber liquid catching the light. Sit, Dante said, shrugging off his wet jacket. I'd rather stand. You're dripping on imported marble. I looked down. A puddle had formed around my boots. Whose fault is that? He almost smiled again. Almost. Instead, he walked to the sideboard and poured 2 glasses of what I assumed was whiskey. He brought one to me, and when I didn't take it, he set it on the glass coffee table between us. You need to call your sister, he said. My phone's dead. He pulled his own from his pocket, unlocked it with a glance, and held it out. Tell her you're running late. Traffic from the airport. Phone died. You'll reschedule for tomorrow. I stared at the phone like it might bite me. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, she'll worry. She'll call the police. The police will start asking questions. His voice dropped lower, more controlled. And questions lead to attention. Attention gets people killed. You keep saying that. Gets who killed? You, her, anyone unlucky enough to be standing nearby. He meant it. I could see it in the way he held himself, in the tension around his eyes. This wasn't a threat. It was a warning. My hand shook as I took the phone. I dialed Luce's number from memory, and when she answered breathless, worried I almost broke. Mia? Where are you? I've been calling, I know. I'm sorry. My phone died and traffic was a nightmare. The lies tasted bitter. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? Same place. Same time? Are you okay? You sound weird. I glanced at Dante. He was watching me with those dark, unreadable eyes, close enough to hear every word. Just tired. Long flight. I'll explain tomorrow. You promise? I promise. I hung up before she could ask anything else. Before I could crack and tell her to send help, to run, to forget she ever had a sister named Mia. Dante took the phone back, his fingers brushing mine for just a second. They were warm, solid, real. Good, he said quietly. That bought us time. Time for what? To figure out who saw you get in my car, and what they think it means. He picked up the whiskey I hadn't touched and drank it himself. My family has enemies, Mia. A lot of them. And right now, they all think you're important to me. But I'm not. You said it yourself, I'm just some random woman who got in the wrong car. Doesn't matter what's true. Matters what they believe. He set the glass down with a soft click. And they believe your leverage. The word settled over me like a weight. Leverage. A tool. A thing to be used. So what happens now? Now you stay here. Under my protection. He said it like it was simple. Like I had a choice. Until I can convince them you're not worth the trouble. And how long will that take? Days. Maybe a week. A week? My voice rose. I have a job. A life. You can't just, I can. He stepped closer, and suddenly the room felt smaller, warmer, and I will. Because the alternative is letting you walk out that door and watching you disappear within an hour. Your body would turn up in the harbor by Sunday. I wanted to call him a liar, to say he was exaggerating, being dramatic, but something in his face told me he'd seen it happen before. Maybe more than once. This is insane, I whispered. Yes, Dante agreed. He was close enough now that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough to make my pulse jump in a way that had nothing to do with fear. But you're still breathing. That's what matters. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me standing in a puddle of rainwater in a stranger's penthouse, wondering how my life had spiraled so completely out of control. Chapter 3. The serpent's gift returned with clothes. Not my clothes, those were still drying somewhere, draped over heated towel racks in a bathroom larger than my bedroom. These were soft things, expensive things. A cashmere sweater in deep charcoal, black leggings that felt like silk against my skin, thick socks that actually fit. Whose are these? I asked, holding the sweater up. Does it matter? Yes. He leaned against the doorframe of the guest room he'd shown me to, arms crossed. Still in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Now, I could see the edge of a tattoo on his left forearm, something dark and intricate that disappeared under the fabric. They're new, he said finally. I had Marco pick them up while you were in the shower. How did he know my size? He's observant. Something about that made my skin prickle. The idea that this Marco, this stranger I'd barely glimpsed, had looked at me closely enough to know what size clothes to buy. Get dressed, Dante said. You need to eat. He left before I could argue. The sweater smelled brand new, tags still attached. I pulled it on and felt immediately guilty for how good it felt, how warm. Like accepting comfort from your captor was its own kind of surrender. When I emerged, he was in the kitchen. Actual cooking smells filled the space: garlic, butter, something herbal. He stood at the stove with his back to me, moving with the same controlled precision he brought to everything else. You cook? I said, surprised. I survive. He didn't turn around. Sit. There were only two places set at the long dining table. Crystal glasses filled with water, cloth napkins folded beside each plate. It felt absurdly civilized. What if I'm not hungry? You haven't eaten since the airport. He plated pasta, something with olive oil and red pepper flakes that made my stomach clench with sudden, betraying hunger. You're not doing yourself any favors by being stubborn. He was right, which made it worse. I sat. The pasta was perfect. I hated that. It was perfect. We ate in silence for a while, and I tried not to think about how surreal this was. Dinner with a man who'd essentially kidnapped me. In a penthouse that probably cost more than I'd earn in 10 years. While somewhere out there, people wanted me dead for a connection that didn't exist. Tell me about your family, I said finally. His fork paused halfway to his mouth. No, you said your family has enemies. You said that's why I'm in danger. Don't I deserve to know what I'm caught up in? Knowing makes you complicit. Ignorance might keep you alive. That's not fair. Fair? He set his fork down, and for the first time since I'd met him, something like anger flickered across his face. Not hot anger, cold, controlled, dangerous. You want fair? Fair is you catching your Uber, having dinner with your sister, going home to whatever normal life you have. Fair left the building the moment you opened that car door. I met his eyes across the table. You're not going to intimidate me into silence. I'm not trying to intimidate you. I'm trying to protect you. By keeping me prisoner? By keeping you breathing. The words hit harder than they should have. There was something raw underneath them, something that sounded almost like pain. He stood abruptly, taking his plate to the sink. I watched the line of his shoulders, tense under the expensive shirt, and wondered what it cost him to care whether a stranger lived or died. There's a man, he said finally, his back still to me. Konstantin Volkov, Russian Mafia. He's been trying to move into Boston for 6 months, and my family's been pushing back. Last week, his nephew disappeared. Yesterday, they found the body. My breath caught. Did you know he turned, and his face was unreadable again. But Constantine thinks we did. He's looking for leverage. For someone to hurt, to balance the scales, and he thinks I'm that someone. He thinks you matter to me. Which means yes. The air between us felt charged suddenly, heavy with implication. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. But I don't matter to you. You don't even know me. Doesn't change what he believes. Then tell him. Send him a message. Explain that I'm nobody. You think I haven't considered that? Dante crossed the space between us in 3 strides, and suddenly he was close again, too close, invading the careful distance I'd been trying to maintain. You think I haven't run through every scenario where you walk out of here and go back to your life? They all end the same way. With you dead and your sister asking questions that get her killed too. His voice had dropped to almost a whisper, but the intensity in it made me take a step back. My hip hit the table edge. So what's the solution? I asked, hating how breathless I sounded. I stay here forever? I find Constantine's nephew's real killer. I give him someone else to blame. I make you irrelevant. His eyes searched mine, and for just a moment, I saw something vulnerable there. Something almost like regret. It won't take long. I have people working on it. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you stay close. You do what I say. You trust that I know what I'm doing. I don't trust you. Smart. He reached out, and I thought he might touch me, my face, my arm. Something, but instead he picked up a small black box from the table behind me. But you're going to have to pretend you do. He opened the box. Inside, on black velvet, sat a ring. Not an engagement ring, something older, more ornate. A family crest carved into dark gold, a serpent eating its own tail. What is that? Protection, Dante said quietly. Put it on, and you're untouchable. Volkov won't risk the war. It would start. I don't understand. His jaw tightened. It's my mother's ring, and if you're wearing it, everyone will think you're mine. Chapter 4. The weight of Goldie stared at the ring like it might burn me. Absolutely not. Dante didn't move, didn't close the box. Just held it there between us, the serpent glinting in the low light. It's not a proposal, Mia. It's survival. It's a lie. Yes. His voice was steady, matter of fact. A lie that keeps you alive. I stepped away from him, from the ring, from the impossible choice he was presenting. My mind raced through alternatives, escape routes. Anything that didn't involve wearing dead woman's jewelry and pretending to belong to a man I'd met 3 hours ago. There has to be another way. There isn't. He closed the box with a soft snap. Volkov's people are already asking questions. They know what car you got into, what time, what street. By morning, they'll have your name. By tomorrow night, they'll have your address, your job, every person you've ever cared about. The certainty in his voice made my stomach turn. How do you know? Because it's what I would do. The admission hung between us, brutal in its honesty. This was his world, surveillance and threats and calculated violence. And I'd stumbled into it, wearing wet clothes and looking for my sister. Show me, I said suddenly. He frowned. Show you what? Proof that this isn't just some elaborate scheme. That you're not just, I gestured helplessly. I don't know, insane. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect maybe. Or surprise that I was still fighting. He pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then turned it toward me. Security footage, grainy and dark. The street where I'd gotten into his car. Timestamp, 7:03 p.m. I watched myself dive into the Mercedes, watched the door close, watched the car pull away, then another angle. Across the street, a different car, black SUV with tinted windows. It pulled out 30 seconds after we did. They followed us for 6 blocks, Dante said quietly, until Marco cut them off near the highway. They know you got in. They know you didn't get out. My mouth went dry. They could have been anyone. He swiped to another image. This one was closer, enhanced somehow. Through the SUV's windshield, I could just make out a face. Slavic features, cold eyes, a tattoo creeping up his neck. That's Alexei Volkov, Constantine's youngest son. Dandy's voice had gone hard. He's killed 17 people that we know of, probably more. And now he's interested in you. I sank down onto the nearest chair, legs suddenly unsteady. This was real. The danger wasn't exaggeration or manipulation. It was documented, time-stamped, following me through rain-soaked streets. Why? I whispered. Why would getting in your car make me a target? Because in our world, proximity equals connection. And connection equals vulnerability. He sat across from me, the ring box still in his hand. They see a woman I've gone out of my way to protect, to hide, to bring to my home. They assume you mean something. That hurting you hurts me. But it wouldn't. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. They don't know that. I looked at the box again. The serpent eating its own tail and Ouroboros. I remembered from some long ago art history class. Eternity, cycles, consumption and rebirth. Your mother's ring, I said. She's dead? 5 years ago. How? Cancer. The word came out flat, final. The kind that doesn't care how much money you have or how many doctors you hire. There was grief there, buried under layers of control. I heard it in the careful way he spoke, in the slight tension around his eyes. I'm sorry. Don't be. She wouldn't want your pity. He opened the box again, and this time there was something almost gentle in the gesture. She'd want you to use whatever tools you had to survive. That's what this is. A tool. A lie. I corrected. A strategic truth. He lifted the ring from its velvet bed. We don't have to pretend anything in private. But in public, when Volkov's people are watching, you need to look like you belong to me. Like touching you means starting a war. The word belong made something twist in my chest. Not anger exactly. Something more complicated. And when this is over, when you find the real killer, then we end it, publicly, cleanly. You go back to your life, and I go back to mine. It sounded so simple, so reasonable. Except nothing about this situation was reasonable. What if someone recognizes me? I asked. What if they know I'm not that we're not? They won't. You're not from this world. That's the only reason this works. He held out the ring. Your anonymity is your protection. To them, you're just another woman who caught my attention. It happens. Does it? The question came out more bitter than I intended. Do you make a habit of kidnapping strangers? His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. You're the first. I didn't know why that mattered, but it did. I took the ring. It was heavier than I expected, warm from being in his pocket. The gold was old, well-worn, the serpent's scales etched with incredible detail. Someone had loved this ring once, worn it daily, left fingerprints in its curves. It won't fit, I said. My fingers were long, thin. His mother had probably been. It slid onto my right ring finger perfectly. Danny's expression did something complicated. Relief, maybe. Or regret. Both? She'd like that, he said quietly. That it fits. I wanted to take it off immediately. The weight felt wrong, the commitment too heavy. But when I looked up and met his eyes, I saw the truth there. This wasn't about romance or possession. It was about survival, and I wanted to survive. Okay, I whispered. But we do this my way too. You tell me what's happening. No more secrets. If I'm playing your, I couldn't say girlfriend, couldn't say lover. If I'm playing this role, I need to know what I'm walking into. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. Deal. Chapter 5. The education started teaching me at midnight. I couldn't sleep anyway. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that SUV pulling into traffic behind us, saw the cold eyes of Alexei Volkov through enhanced surveillance footage. So when Dante knocked softly on the guest room door, I was already awake, sitting by the window, watching rain trace patterns down the glass. Come with me, he said. He led me to a room I hadn't seen before, an office. All dark wood and leather, walls lined with books. A massive desk dominated the space, and behind it, a screen displayed what looked like a family tree. Names, photographs, lines connecting them in an intricate web. This is the Volkov family, Dante said, pointing to the top of the tree. Konstantin is here. 3 sons, Alexei, Dmitri, and Nikolai. Nikolai's the one who died. I moved closer, studying the faces. Konstantin looked exactly like what I'd imagine a Russian mob boss would look like. Hard features, ice blue eyes, the kind of face that had forgotten how to smile decades ago. He was 23, I said, looking at Nikolai's photo. Young, almost boyish. 23 and stupid. He was skimming from his father's operations, got involved with the wrong people. Danny's finger traced a line to another section of the tree. We think it was internal. Someone in Konstantin's own organization who saw an opportunity. But Konstantin blames you. Konstantin needs to blame someone external. Admitting his own people turned on him shows weakness. In our world, weakness is death. Our world. He kept saying it like that, like there was a clear line between his reality and mine. Except I was standing in his office at midnight, wearing his mother's ring. so maybe that line was already blurred. Tell me about your family, I said, his jaw tightened. That wasn't part of the deal. Yes, it was. No more secrets. I met his eyes. If I'm supposed to be yours, I need to know who you are. What I'm pretending to be part of. For a long moment, I thought he'd refuse. Then he exhaled slowly and pulled up a different screen. Another family tree. This one going back generations. The Gravanos came to Boston in 1952, he said. My great-grandfather Salvatore started with protection rackets in the North End. By the time my grandfather took over, we controlled most of the ports. My father expanded into legitimate business construction, real estate, waste management, legitimate, I echoed skeptically. Mostly, a slight curve of his mouth. We're not what we were. My father wanted out of the old ways. Wanted clean money, legal enterprises. He was close to pulling it off when he died. How did he die? Car accident. Black ice. Late November. His voice went flat. The investigators said it was mechanical failure. Brake lines. But brake lines don't just fail on a Mercedes that's serviced every month. You think someone killed him. I know someone did. I just can't prove it. He stared at the screen at his father's photograph. My mother died 6 months later. After that, it was just me and my sister. You have a sister? Something softened in his face. Isabella. She's 24, studying architecture in Milan. She doesn't know the details of what I do. I keep it that way. I understood that instinct. The desperate need to protect someone you loved from the darkness you inhabited. She knows about the family business though. She knows enough to stay away. Smart girl. He glanced at me. Like you should have been. I didn't exactly have a choice. No, he agreed quietly. You didn't. He pulled up another set of images, surveillance photos, street scenes, faces I didn't recognize. These are Volkov's key people. You need to know them by sight. He pointed to each one. Alexei. You've seen. Dmitry is the oldest, handles financial operations. Ivan Kozlov, Konstantin's enforcer. If you see him, you walk away immediately. Don't engage. Don't make eye contact. Find me. Why? What makes him different? Ivan doesn't ask questions first. He hurts people and sorts out the details later. Dandy's voice was carefully neutral. He's the one who'll come for you if they decide you're worth taking. The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. And if I can't find you, you will. Starting tomorrow, Marco will be with you whenever I'm not. I don't need a babysitter. You need someone watching your back who knows what to look for. He turned to face me fully. This isn't a game, Mia. These people don't make threats. They act. And by the time you realize you're in danger, it's already too late. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold, despite the warm sweater. How do you live like this? Always looking over your shoulder. Never trusting anyone? You get used to it. But something in his eyes said that was a lie. And you find reasons to keep going. Like what? He was quiet for a moment, studying me with that unsettling intensity. Like making sure innocent people don't get caught in the crossfire. The words hung between us, weighted with meaning I didn't fully understand. Is that what I am? I asked softly. Your good deed? Your chance at redemption? You're a complication. But his voice had lost its edge. One I didn't plan for and don't know what to do with. Join the club. That almost smile again. It transformed his face, made him look younger. Less like a mafia boss and more like a man who'd forgotten how to be anything else. He reached out, and before I could pull away, he took my hand. The one wearing his mother's ring. His thumb brushed over the serpent, a gesture so unconscious I didn't think he realized he was doing it. Tomorrow, we go public, he said. You ready? No, I wasn't ready. I'd never be ready. Yes, I lied. His fingers tightened around mine for just a second. Then he let go, stepping back into his careful distance. Get some sleep, he said. You'll need it. But as I lay in bed an hour later, the ring heavy on my finger, sleep felt impossible. Because tomorrow, I'd step into his world completely, and I wasn't sure I'd ever find my way back out. Chapter 6. The Performance Youth restaurant was the kind of place where silence cost extra. Danny's hand rested on the small of my back as we entered warm. Possessive, the touch of someone who had every right to guide me through spaces. I'd almost flinched when he first made contact outside, but his fingers had pressed just slightly harder, a reminder. This is the performance. Play your part. So I leaned into it, into him. Let my body relax against his side as the maitre d' led us through the dining room. Every eye followed us. Or maybe they followed him. And I was just the curiosity piece, the unfamiliar woman wearing Sofia Gravano's ring on her right hand where everyone could see it. Relax, Dante murmured against my ear, his breath warm. You look terrified. I am terrified. Then look angry instead. Like you're tolerating this dinner under protest. His mouth curved against my temple. That's more believable anyway. He was right. The tension in my shoulders could read as irritation instead of fear. I lifted my chin, let some of my actual resentment show through. His low chuckle vibrated through me. Better. Our table was in the back, positioned so Dante could see the entire room. Marco stood near the bar, nursing a drink, but watching everything. I recognized two other men now from the surveillance photos last night. Volkov's people. They sat 3 tables away, pretending not to stare. They're here, I whispered. I know. That's the point. Dante pulled out my chair, his hand lingering on my shoulder as I sat. The gesture looked tender, protective. Order whatever you want. We're going to be here a while. The menu was in Italian. No prices. I can't read this. I'll order for you. He caught my expression and added, unless that offends your modern sensibilities. Everything about this offends my modern sensibilities. That almost smile again. He was doing it more often now, I realized. Small cracks in his careful control. The waiter appeared, and Dante ordered in fluid Italian. His voice changed when he spoke. The language became warmer, more musical. I watched his mouth form the words and felt something low in my stomach tighten. Stop it, I told myself. He's your captor, not your date, except the line between those things was getting harder to see. You speak Italian, I said when the waiter left. My grandmother refused to speak English in her house. You learned or you starved. He poured water into my glass, the motion casual. Do you speak anything other than English? Bad high school, Spanish. Some Mandarin from my roommate in college. I twisted the ring on my finger, a nervous habit I'd developed overnight. Nothing useful. Mandarin's useful. Not in Boston's North End. No, he agreed. Not there. The food came in courses, each one more beautiful than the last. Delicate pasta, perfectly seared fish, vegetables that tasted like they'd been grown and eaten. I ate mechanically, aware of every eye on us. Every moment that needed to look natural. Dante reached across the table and took my hand. The gesture looked romantic. The grip was instruction. Laugh, he said quietly. Like I said something charming. I forced out a laugh, too loud to brittle. Christ Mia. Not like I'm torturing you. Aren't you? His thumb moved over my knuckles, tracing patterns that made my skin prickle. Think of something actually funny. A memory. Something real. I thought of my sister, of Luce trying to teach me to make her famous lasagna, and me somehow setting the oven mitt on fire. How we'd laughed until we cried while the smoke alarm screamed. This laugh came easier, softer. There, Dante said, and something in his voice had shifted. That's better. His eyes held mine across the table, dark and unreadable, but not cold. Not anymore. And for a moment, just a moment, I forgot we were pretending. Then he released my hand and looked past me, his expression hardening. We have company. I started to turn, but his voice stopped me. Don't look. Just listen. Footsteps approached. Stopped beside our table. Gravano. The voice was heavily accented. Russian. I don't believe we've been formally introduced to your companion. I looked up. The man from the surveillance photo stood there, Ivan Kozlov. Up close, he was worse. Scar tissue down one side of his face, eyes like chips of dirty ice. He smiled, and it was the most frightening expression I'd ever seen. Ivan. Danny's voice had gone arctic. You're interrupting. My apologies. I simply wanted to offer congratulations. His gaze moved to me, lingering on the ring. Such a lovely thing you found. Delicate. The word delicate sounded like a threat. She's tougher than she looks, Dante said. Is she? Ivan's smile widened. I do hope so. The North End can be so dangerous for those who don't belong. Dante stood, the movement liquid and controlled. But I felt the violence in it, coiled and ready. He stepped between Ivan and me, his body a wall. Deliver your message and leave. No message. Just curiosity. Ivan's eyes flicked to me one more time. Enjoy your dinner, Malishka, little one. The endearment made my skin crawl. He walked away, and Dante remained standing until the Russian had left the restaurant entirely. When he finally sat, his jaw was tight. a muscle jumping beneath the skin. We're leaving, he said. But we haven't now. He threw cash on the table far too much and took my hand, pulling me up. This touch was different, urgent, almost rough. Marco was already moving toward the exit, phone pressed to his ear. The air felt wrong suddenly, charged with something I couldn't name. What happened? I asked as we reached the car. What did he mean? Dante opened the door, his hand on my head, guiding me inside, like cops do with criminals. Protective, possessive, he meant. Dante said quietly, dangerously, that Volkov knows exactly who you are. And they've decided you're worth keeping. Chapter 7. The fractured penthouse felt different when we returned. Colder. Or maybe that was just the ice in my veins. Dante paced the length of the living room. Phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. Marco stood by the door, arms crossed, face carved from stone. I sat on the leather couch, still wearing the dress Dante had given me, midnight blue silk that probably cost more than my car, and tried to process what Ivan's words actually meant. They've decided you're worth keeping. How? I asked when Dante finally hung up. How do they know who I am? They ran your photo through facial recognition, found your social media, your work profile, everything. He dragged a hand through his hair, the first genuinely frustrated gesture I'd seen from him. Your sister posted a photo 3 days ago. The two of you at the airport. Caption said, can't wait to see you. My stomach dropped. Loose. She had no way of knowing. But they traced the connection. Mia Castellano, 28, works at Hartwell Design Studio. Has a sister, Luciana, who's a sous chef at Luciana's on Newberry. Parents retired to Florida. Clean record. No connections to organized crime. His voice was flat, reciting facts. You're exactly what you appeared to be. That's the problem. I don't understand. It makes you perfect. He stopped pacing, turning to face me. You're not from our world. You have no protection, no family connections they'd need to worry about. Taking you doesn't start a war, it just hurts me. And hurting me weakens my position. The way he said me made something twist in my chest. So what do? We don't do anything. You stay here, behind security. I control, until I can negotiate your release. Negotiate? With what? With whatever Constantine wants. He moved to the bar, poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, drank half in one swallow. Territory, money, information. Everything has a price. I stood, anger finally cutting through the fear. I'm not currency. In this world, everyone's currency. Then maybe it's a shitty world. He looked at me, really looked at me, and something cracked in his expression. You think I don't know that? The words came out raw, almost wounded. For a moment, I saw past the control, past the careful masks, to something exhausted underneath. Something that had been fighting for so long it had forgotten what peace felt like. Then why stay in it? I asked quietly. Because walking away doesn't change what I am. Doesn't erase what I've done. He set the glass down. And it doesn't protect the people who depend on me. Like Isabella. Like Isabella. Like the families who work for us legitimately. Like he stopped, jaw tightening. Like me? You were never supposed to be part of this. But I am now. I moved closer. Close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Close enough to smell that woody cologne that I was starting to associate with safety instead of danger. So stop treating me like I'm made of glass. Tell me the truth. All of it. He stared at me for a long moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Pulled up a message. This came 20 minutes ago. I took the phone. The message was in Russian, but below it, a translation. We'll trade. The girl for Nikolai's killer. You have 48 hours. My hands started shaking. They want me. They want leverage. They think if they take you, I'll give them what they want to get you back. And will you? The question hung between us, heavy with implications I didn't want to examine. I don't have Nikolai's killer, Dante said finally. We're still looking. But even if I found them tomorrow, the exchange would be a trap. The moment they have you, they have no reason to honor any deal. So I'm just what? Stuck here? Hiding? You're alive. That's not nothing. It's not living either. He moved closer, and suddenly we were inches apart, the air between us charged with something that had nothing to do with fear. His hand came up, hovering near my face, but not quite touching. You think I want this? His voice had dropped to almost a whisper. You think I wanted to drag some innocent woman into my disaster of a life? Then let me go. I can't. The words sounded like they cost him something. The moment you step outside my protection, they'll take you. And what they'll do to you before they kill you." He stopped, closing his eyes. "I won't let that happen." "Why?" I demanded. "Why do you care what happens to me?" "Because you got in the wrong car." The words came out harsh, almost angry. "Because you smiled at me like I was just a driver when you dove into that Mercedes. Because you're standing here arguing with me instead of falling apart like any sane person would. Because," he stopped, pulled back, reset. "Because it's my fault," he finished quietly. "And I don't leave my debts unpaid." The distance he'd just created felt like a physical loss. I wanted to close it, to push until that careful control cracked completely, to see what was underneath all the careful masks. Instead, I pulled the ring off my finger. "What are you doing?" he asked. "If wearing this makes me a target, then I'm not wearing it." "Mia, you said it yourself. They already know who I am. The ring doesn't protect me anymore. It just makes me more of a prize." I held it out to him. "So take it back." He stared at the ring in my palm, at the serpent eating its own tail, at the gold that had belonged to his mother. When he finally looked up, his eyes were storm dark. "Keep it," he said. "Why?" "Because I want you to." The admission hung between us, raw and unguarded. And I realized with sudden, terrifying clarity that this had stopped being about protection somewhere along the way, for both of us. Chapter 8. The breaking. The attack came at dawn. I woke to the sound of breaking glass. For a moment, my sleep-fogged brain tried to make sense of it: a dropped dish, a window in the wind. Then I heard the gunshots, 3 rapid cracks that made my heart stop. My door slammed open. Dante filled the frame, gun in hand, dressed in just dark pants. No shirt, tattoos I'd never seen before covering his chest and shoulders, saints and sinners, crosses and flames. "Bathroom, now." His voice was commander flat. "Lock the door. Don't come out until I get you." "What's happening now, Mia?" I ran, locked myself in the marble bathroom and sank down beside the tub, hands pressed over my mouth to keep from screaming. More gunshots, shouting in Russian and Italian. Something heavy crashed in the living room. I counted my heartbeats, lost count, started over. The doorknob rattled. "Mia," Dandy's voice, tight with something that might have been pain. "Open the door." My hands shook as I unlocked it. He pushed inside and locked it again behind him. And that's when I saw the blood, dark and wet, spreading across his left shoulder. Oh God, it's nothing. But his face had gone pale beneath his olive skin. "You're shot." Grazed. He moved to the sink, turned on the water. "Marco's handling the rest. We need to clean this." Before his knees buckled, I caught him, or tried to. We both went down, his weight carrying us to the cold tile. He ended up half in my lap, blood smearing across the blue silk dress I'd fallen asleep in. "Dante, Dante, stay with me. Not dying." His voice was strained. "Just need a minute." I pressed my hands against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. He hissed through his teeth, jaw clenching, but didn't pull away. "Tell me what to do," I said. "First aid kit. Under the sink." I found it, of course. He had a first aid kit in here, probably in every room. Military-grade supplies, not the Band-Aids and antibiotic cream I had at home. I pulled out gauze, antiseptic, everything I could find. "This is going to hurt," I warned. "Everything hurts." But when I poured antiseptic over the wound, his hand shot out and gripped my thigh hard enough to bruise. "Christ. Sorry, don't apologize. Just keep going." I cleaned the wound as gently as I could, my hands steadier than they should have been. The bullet had carved a furrow across his shoulder, deep but not fatal. He was right. Just a graze. Just. "Who was it?" I asked, as I wrapped gauze around his shoulder. "Volkov's men. 4 of them." His breathing was still shallow. "They got past the first security point. Won't get past the second." "How can you be sure?" "Because Marco doesn't miss." He met my eyes. "And because I'm still breathing." The gunfire had stopped. The silence felt worse somehow. "Is this because of me?" My voice broke on the last word. "Did they come here for?" "They came here to send a message." His hand found mine, stilling my shaking fingers. "They failed. You're bleeding. I'm alive. So are you. That's what matters." I wanted to argue, to rage at the insanity of this being normal for him. Instead, I finished bandaging his shoulder, my fingers brushing over warm skin and old scars. There were so many scars. Bullet wounds, knife marks, burns, a map of violence written across his body. "How long have you been doing this?" I whispered. since I was 17. My father's first lesson: never show weakness, never show fear. He leaned his head back against the tub, eyes closed. I'm tired, Mia. So fucking tired of it. The admission was so unexpected, so vulnerable that I forgot to breathe. This was the man beneath the armor. The one who'd been playing a role so long he'd almost become it. Then stop, I said. Can't. Too many people counting on me. Too many. He opened his eyes, looked at me. You should hate me. For dragging you into this. For keeping you here. For being the reason men just broke into your bedroom with guns. I should. I agreed. My hand was still in his. Our fingers tangled together. But I don't. Why not? Because somewhere between the wrong car and this blood-soaked bathroom floor, I'd started seeing him. Not the mafia boss or the killer, or the man who held my life in his hands. Just him. The man who cooked pasta at midnight, who spoke to his dead mother's ring like a prayer, who looked at me like I was something precious he was terrified of breaking. Because you're trying to keep me alive, I said instead. Safer words. Easier words. That's not enough. It's everything. His free hand came up, cupped my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. His palm was warm, calloused, stained with his own blood. I should have pulled away, should have maintained some distance, some sense of self-preservation. Instead, I leaned into the touch. Mia. My name on his lips sounded like a warning, like a plea. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like I'm someone worth saving. Maybe you are. I'm not. I've done things. His jaw clenched. Things you can't forgive. Things I can't forgive. Then maybe we're both just trying to survive. He pulled me closer, his forehead resting against mine. We stayed like that, breathing the same air, blood and antiseptic and something else between us. Something neither of us had words for. The bathroom door opened. Marco stood there, gun still drawn, blood spatter across his shirt. He looked at us, Dante half-dressed and bleeding in my lap, my hands on his skin, our faces inches apart, and something flickered in his expression. They're gone, he said. But we need to move. Now. They know where she is. Dandy's hand tightened on mine. Pack everything, he said. We're leaving Boston. Chapter 9. The safe Husethi safe house was 2 hours north, hidden in the woods where the roads turned to gravel and cell service died. I watched through the car window as pine trees blurred past, dawn breaking purple and gold between their branches. Dante sat beside me in the back seat, freshly bandaged, wearing a black shirt that hid the blood. He hadn't spoken since we left the city. Just stared out his own window, jaw tight, fingers drumming against his thigh. Marco drove. Another man I didn't recognize rode in a second car behind us. What about my sister? I asked finally. What about Luce? She's safe. I have people watching her. Dandy's voice was rough with exhaustion. They won't touch her. Not yet. She's only valuable if they need more leverage. You mean if they can't get to me? Yes. The word sat heavy between us. I was the target. Now. The prize. The thing worth taking. I twisted his mother's ring. I'd put it back on somewhere between the bathroom and leaving, and he hadn't commented. Just looked at my hand and nodded once, like I'd made the right choice. The safe house appeared suddenly, a cabin that was too nice to be called a cabin. All weathered wood and wide windows overlooking a lake that looked black in the early light. Marco parked, scanned the area, then opened my door. Inside, he said. Not unkind. Just efficient. The interior was sparse but comfortable. Stone fireplace, leather furniture, a kitchen that looked rarely used. Dante moved to the windows immediately, checking sight lines, exits. Always calculating. Always 3 steps ahead. You should rest, I said. Your shoulder is fine. But he winced when he reached for his phone. Dante. He looked at me then, really looked, and some of the hardness in his expression softened. I'll rest when I know you're secure. I'm secure. Marco's here. There's another guard outside. The only people who know about this place are 3 people. Marco, my sister, and me. He moved closer, and I could see the exhaustion in the lines around his eyes. And I'm keeping it that way. What about finding Nikolai's killer? What about my people are handling it? Right now, the priority is keeping you alive until we have something to trade. He touched my face, that same gentle gesture from last night. I need you to trust me. I do. The words came easier than they should have. That's what scares me. His thumb traced my bottom lip, and I saw something flare in his eyes. Heat, want, quickly controlled. Get some sleep, he said, pulling back. I'll wake you if anything changes. But I couldn't sleep. I stood in the bedroom he'd shown me, smaller than the guest room at the penthouse, with a view of the lake, and tried to process everything that had happened in less than 48 hours. I'd gotten in the wrong car. Now, I was hiding in the woods, wearing a dead woman's ring, and falling for the man who'd essentially kidnapped me. No, not falling. That implied something gentle, something I could control. This was freefall. This was drowning. I found Dante on the deck an hour later, leaning against the railing, phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking Italian again, soft and fast, and I caught only a few words. Capisco. No. He hung up when he heard me approach. Can't sleep? He asked. Can you? Haven't slept properly in 5 years, since his mother died, since he'd taken over everything his father built, since he'd become this version of himself, the one who carried guns and made impossible decisions and kept people alive through sheer force of will. That's not sustainable. I said. No. He looked out at the lake, at the mist rising off the dark water. But it's all I have. I moved to stand beside him, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. The morning air was cold, sharp with pine and wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney somewhere in the distance. What happens now? I asked. Now we wait. My people are putting pressure on Constantine's organization. Eventually, someone will crack. Someone always does. His hand found mine on the railing, fingers threading through mine. When we know who killed Nikolai, we make the trade. You go free. And you? I go back to my life, such as it is. The thought of going back to my apartment, my job, my normal existence, where the most dangerous thing I faced was a missed deadline, should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like loss. What if I don't want to go back? The words escaped before I could stop them. Dante turned to face me fully, his expression unreadable. Mia, I know this is crazy. Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding or whatever psychological term explains why I'm standing here instead of running. I pulled my hand from his, needing the distance to think clearly. But I also know what I feel. And it's not fear. Not anymore. It should be. I'm not a good man. I don't believe that. Then you're not paying attention. He stepped closer, backing me against the railing. Not aggressive, intense. I've killed people, Mia. Not in self-defense. Not accidentally. I've made the decision and pulled the trigger and watched them die. I've hurt people to get information, destroyed families to protect my own interests. I'm exactly what you should be running from, but I'm not running. You should be. Then make me. I lifted my chin, meeting his dark eyes. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you're keeping me here out of obligation and nothing else. Tell me that when you look at me, you don't see. He kissed me, hard, desperate, like he'd been holding back for days and something had finally broken. His hands cupped my face, tilted my head back, and I tasted whiskey and coffee and something darker. Something that tasted like danger and felt like coming home. I kissed him back, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, even though I knew this was a mistake. Knew it was crossing a line we couldn't uncross. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine. This is a terrible idea, he whispered. I know. You deserve better than this. Better than me. I know that too. His laugh was rough, almost broken. Then why? Because I want you anyway. Chapter 10. The Truth and the Choice. Call came 3 hours later. We were still on the deck. Sitting in the Adirondack chairs Dante had dragged closer together. My legs draped over his lap, his hand absently tracing patterns on my ankle. Not talking. Just existing in the same space, breathing the same air. Pretending the world outside this moment didn't exist. When his phone rang, I felt him tense before he even looked at the screen. Marco, he said, answering. Then his face went carefully blank. When? Are you certain? No, don't move until I get there. He hung up. Didn't speak for a long moment. They found him, I said. Not a question. Yes. He looked at me, and something in his eyes made my chest tighten. Nikolai's killer. It was Dmitri, Constantine's oldest son. His own brother? Half-brother. Different mothers. Old rivalries, new ambitions. Dante stood, pacing to the railing. Dmitri wanted control of the organization. Nikolai was Constantine's favorite, first in line. So Dmitri arranged an accident and blamed us, to unite the family against a common enemy. Does Constantine know? He does now. Marco's people delivered the proof an hour ago. Danny's jaw clenched. Constantine wants a meeting. Tonight, to formally end hostilities and discuss. He stopped. Discuss what? Restitution. For the damage this caused. For the resources we spent protecting you. He turned to face me. You're free, Mia. You can go home. The words should have felt like liberation. Instead, they felt like a door closing. Just like that? Just like that. Constantine's dealing with his own family crisis now. You're irrelevant to him. Safe. He moved closer, his hand reaching for mine. I'll have Marco drive you back to Boston. You can see your sister tonight. Go back to work tomorrow. Be normal again. Normal, I echoed. The word felt foreign. Isn't that what you wanted? It was. 48 hours ago, it was all I wanted to escape this nightmare. To return to my predictable life, where the worst thing I faced was choosing wallpaper samples, but somewhere between the wrong car and right now, normal had started feeling like a cage. What do you want? I asked. What I want doesn't matter. It matters to me. He stared at me for a long moment, something raw and unguarded in his expression. I want you to be safe. To have the life you should have had before I ruined it. You didn't ruin it. You saved it. By making you a prisoner. By caring whether I lived or died. I stood, closing the distance between us. You could have let me go that first night. Could have called Volk of yourself and explained the mistake. But you didn't. Why? Because I'm selfish. His voice had gone rough. Because the moment you looked at me in that rearview mirror, something shifted. And I couldn't. He stopped, jaw working. I couldn't let them take you. Then don't let me go now. Mia, I know what I'm saying. I know what this means. My hands found his chest, felt his heart hammering beneath the expensive shirt. I'm not asking for promises or fairy tales. I'm asking for time. To see if this whatever this is real. It's real. The admission came out like a confession. That's the problem. You shouldn't be real to me. Shouldn't matter. But you do. You walked into my life by accident and became. He pulled me closer, his forehead touching mine. You became the only thing that feels right. I kissed him. Softer this time. Slower, tasting the truth in his words, the fear beneath his control. When we broke apart, his eyes were storm dark. If you stay, he said quietly, your life changes. You'll be connected to me, to what I do. People will know your face. You'll always be looking over your shoulder. I'm already looking over my shoulder. At least this way, I get to choose who's standing beside me. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is. He studied my face like he was memorizing it. Like he couldn't quite believe I was choosing this. Choosing him. Your sister, he said finally. She'll have questions. I'll tell her the truth. Or as much of it as she needs to know. Your job, I'll figure it out. Dante, stop looking for reasons this won't work and just. I pulled back slightly, meeting his eyes. Just tell me you want me to stay. I want you to stay. The words came fierce, almost desperate. God help me. I want you to stay. Relief and terror, and something dangerously close to joy, flooded through me. Then I'm staying. He kissed me again, deeper this time, his hands in my hair, on my back, pulling me against him like he was afraid I'd disappear. I felt the bandage under his shirt, the scars beneath that, the violence and vulnerability that made him who he was. When we finally broke apart, breathless and shaking, he pressed something into my palm. A key. To here, he said, and to the penthouse. You're not a prisoner anymore. You can leave whenever you want. But if you stay, his voice roughened. If you stay as yourself, not as protection or obligation, as choice. I closed my fingers around the key, feeling its weight. The serpent ring still circled my finger, but now it meant something different. Not protection, not pretend, promise. I choose you, I said. All of it. The danger, the complications, the impossible life you lead. I choose you. He pulled me close again, his breath warm against my ear. Then I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Outside, the lake reflected the afternoon sun, turning the water gold and copper. Marco appeared in the doorway behind us, clearing his throat. Boss. Constantine sent confirmation. The meeting's set for 8. Danny's arms tightened around me for just a moment. Then he released me, stepping back into the role he'd been playing for years. Commander, leader, the man who made impossible decisions. But his hand found mine. Held on. Then let's finish this, he said, and for the first time in days, I wasn't afraid of what came next, because whatever it was, we'd face it together.